In the dim glow of a Seoul high-rise, where the Han River's lights fractured like scattered diamonds against the night, a single tweet ignited the storm. It was late June 2025, mere days after Minyongi, Suga to the world, Auguste D, in his shadowed solos, stepped quietly from the military barracks that had claimed him for 21 months of social service. No fanfare, no airport frenzy like the others, just a hooded figure slipping into a black van, vanishing into the city's pulse. Sugar's gone ghost, the post read, like a million times before dawn. Whispers rippled across oceans. Was it the shoulder that never fully healed from that 2023 surgery? The weight of BTS's fractured timeline, with brothers like RM and V already teasing sketches of reunion tracks, or something deeper, a retreat from the machine that had forged him into a diamond-edged blade. The air in HYBE's headquarters hung thick that week, not with the usual hum of producers layering synths over heartbreak anthems, but with an uneasy hush. Si-hyuk, the architect behind it all, the man who'd spotted a scrawny Daegu rapper in an underground cipher and bet the farm on 7 misfits, paced his corner office. At 53, his face carried the lines of a gambler who'd won big, but knew the house always edged closer. He'd built an empire on intuition, turning BTS from dorm-bound dreamers into global disruptors, their lyrics dissecting fame's underbelly while topping charts. But Yoongi, he was the quiet storm, the one who wrote in the dead of night, turning personal voids into verses that hit like whispered confessions. Bang remembered the mixtapes, Auguste D's Raw Fury in 2016, a middle finger to the industry that nearly broke him. D2 in 2020, alchemizing therapy sessions into trap anthems. And then D-Day, that 2023 opus, a theatrical reckoning with his own scars, performed to sold-out arenas before the draft notice arrived like an unwelcome encore. Yoongi's enlistment had been different. No active duty marches, but community service at a factory. Then a quiet post in a welfare centre, his days blending into the rhythm of routine paperwork and fleeting interactions. Fans pieced together glimpses from Weather's shadows, a blurry photo of him in uniform, cap low over eyes that seemed to stare through the lens. A rare update in April 2025, his voice gravelly over a live stream, joking about missing his turntables but finding solace in the ordinary. "Time bends weird here," he'd said, fingers drumming an invisible beat on his knee. "Makes you question what disappearing even means." By discharge, the army had swelled with anticipation, their purple oceans flooding social feeds with hashtag #WelcomeHomeYoongi. Yet as July bled into August, the silence stretched. No solo drops, no BTS studio selfies, rumours festered, burnout from the military's monotony, a secret pivot to producing for New Jeans or Ellie Seraphim, or worse, a permanent fade-out. Yoongi trading spotlights for anonymity in some Jeju cabin, fishing poles replacing microphones. Bang Si-hyuk watched it unfold from his desk. Scrolls of data painting the cost, streaming dips for older tracks, fan forum threads veering from devotion to despair. He'd promised RM back in 2018 during a tear-streaked Festa dinner that 2025 would mark not just survival, but renaissance. A HYYH anniversary album, threads of youth woven into matured anthems, fulfilling the vow of the most beautiful moment in life, evolving, not ending. That vision hinged on all 7, but Yoongi was the linchpin, his production wizardry, the glue binding their chaos into harmony. One evening, as monsoon rains lashed the windows, Bang picked up the phone, not to a manager, but straight to Yoongi, whose voice crackled through like smoke from a just-lit cigarette. "Hyung," Yoongi said, no preamble. "I've been building something, not tracks, something that lasts longer than a chart run." The call lingered in Bang's mind as he prepared for the Kwanghun Forum Redux, a 2025 iteration where industry titans dissected K-pop's post-pandemic mutations. He'd spoken there before, in 2023, tempering hype with caution. No ironclad comeback date, just a hope forged in respect for their service. This time, with all discharges behind them, Jin in June 2024, J-Hope soon after, the Maknaes in early 2025, and Yoongi sealing the circle on June 21st. He chose candor over corporate gloss. Midway through his keynote, as holograms of BTS's stadium conquests flickered behind him, he paused. The room, packed with execs in tailored suits and scouts scribbling notes, leaned in. "There's been noise about one of our pillars," Bang said, his tone steady as a bass drop. Suga, Minyongi hasn't vanished. Far from it. He's channeling that fire into a project that redefines legacy. Murmurs rose like steam from street food carts. Bang didn't name it outright, letting the reveal simmer. A 5 billion won pledge to Yonsei Severance Hospital, birthing the Minyongi Center for autism spectrum treatment. A beacon for children navigating worlds others couldn't map. It wasn't philanthropy as afterthought, the kind splashed for tax breaks or image buffs. For Yoongi, it rooted in the soil of his own fractures. Back in his Daegu youth, he'd been the odd one out, retreating to a cramped studio where beats drowned the isolation. Autism spectrum had brushed his orbit through cousins and friends' siblings. Silent battles waged in underfunded clinics. Parents bartering hope for hours. Military days amplified it. Stationed at a community outpost, he'd volunteered extra shifts in youth programs, witnessing kids with sensory storms find fleeting peace in rhythm games. Claps echoing like makeshift drums, melodies bridging the gaps words couldn't. "Music saved me when nothing else could," he'd confide later in a private journal entry leaked by accident to a fan translator. That seed, watered by Discharge's clarity, bloomed into action. No fanfare launch, just a quiet handover in July. Checks cleared under his real name. The center's blueprint sketched with input from neuro specialists. Sensory rooms lined in soft acoustics. Therapy pods pulsing with customizable soundscapes. As autumn deepened, the project's layers unfolded like a slow-burn track building to its hook. By November, the center's inaugural event pulsed with life. A concert hall adapted for 50 young attendees, lights dimmed to avoid overload, seats flexible for pacing needs. Yoongi stood off stage, not as Suga the icon, but in plain black hoodie, directing sound engineers to layer ambient waves beneath child-led improvisations. One boy, 8 years old with eyes that darted like fireflies, gripped a maraca and shook out a melody that mirrored Yoongi's own interlude shadow, tentative, then defiant. The room held its breath, parents' faces cracking with unpracticed smiles. Bang, attending incognito in the back row, felt the echo of their early dorm nights. 7 boys fumbling harmonies, turning vulnerability into voltage. This wasn't a detour from music. It was its purest distillation. August D's aggression softened into advocacy, proving legacy wasn't stadium roars but ripples in quiet corners. Yet tension lingered in the narrative's undercurrent, the push-pull of a man who'd always danced on fame's razor wire. Whispers persisted. Would this eclipse a second August D album? Fans dissected his sparse posts, a September Instagram story of vinyl stacks labelled therapy tunes, captioned with a single ellipsis, a Weverse poll in October asking ARMY about sounds that heal. Speculation swirled, a concept record fusing hip-hop with therapeutic frequencies, collaborations with neurodiverse artists, or even BTS tracks reimagined for accessibility, verses slowed for processing, choruses layered with visual descriptors for the stage. Bang's confirmation had quelled the panic. but it birthed a new hunger. What if Yoongi's disappearance was alchemy, transmuting personal exile into communal bridge building? In private huddles with the group, as they reconvened in a sunlit studio overlooking Namsan Tower, Yoongi sketched ideas on napkins, beats that mimicked neural pathways, lyrics probing empathy's blind spots. RM nodded, pen flying. J-Hope mirrored the rhythm on his thigh. The HYYH revival loomed, but this side quest infused it with gravity, their youthful anthems now laced with lived wisdom. The broader tide it stirred was subtler, a current pulling at K-pop's glossy facade. In an industry wired for virality, where idols cycle through concepts like seasonal wardrobes, burnout masked as growth phases, Yoongi's pivot whispered of sustainability. HYBE's ecosystem, once critiqued for churn and burn trainee mills, began threading in wellness mandates, mandatory mental health check-ins, production labs partnering with Seoul's neuro institutes. Fans, too, evolved. Army chapters worldwide funneled donations, turning purple light sticks into lifelines for local autism initiatives. It recalled the global fervor of Black Lives Matter intersections in 2020, when BTS halted promotions to amplify voices, or Jin's 2024 blood drive's post-discharge. But Yoongi's move felt intimate, a soloist's soliloquy on connection, challenging the idol binary. Entertain or engage? In coffee shops from Busan to Brooklyn, conversations shifted, from setlist predictions to what if music could diagnose as much as it distracts, echoing how the Beatles' later psychedelia birthed therapy soundtracks, or how Kendrick Lamar's introspection fueled mental health memoirs. As December's chill settled, the centre's first full cohort gathered for a winter workshop, snowflakes tapping the insulated windows like Morse code encouragements. As December's chill settled, the centre's first full cohort gathered for a winter workshop, snowflakes tapping the insulated windows like Morse code encouragements. Yoongi arrived unannounced, mic in hand, not to perform, but to co-create, guiding a teen through a freestyle on finding your echo in the noise. Her lines tumbled out, halting, then cascading, mirroring his own evolution from mixtape isolation to this shared canvas. Bang watched from the doorway, the forum's echo fading into irrelevance. Reunion tours would thunder soon enough, arenas quaking under dynamite refrains laced with new depths. But here, in the hush of healing frequencies, Yoongi wasn't disappearing. He was re-emerging, a constellation realigning. The project, this quiet revolution, bound him tighter to the boy who'd once rapped against walls, now dismantling them one note at a time. In the end, legacy wasn't the void left by absence, but the light refracted through what filled it, enduring, unyielding, profoundly human. Weeks later, as the new year clawed its way through Seoul's frost-laced alleys, Yoongi found himself back in the Genius Lab, that sanctum of scattered cables and half-empty soju bottles where he'd once forged Dechwita from the embers of his own unraveling. The room smelled of fresh varnish and recycled air, monitors humming like old friends reacquainting. But the desk bore a new artifact, a sleek tablet streaming feeds from the Minyongi Center, where a girl's halting piano riff echoed in real time, her fingers dancing over keys tuned to soothe synaptic storms. He'd slipped the device into his bag that December morning, post-workshop, as if it were a talisman against the pull of expectation. Discharge had been a whisper, June 21st, a date etched in army calendars like a sacred verse. No throngs at the gates, just a letter penned in his jagged script, released via Weverse. I've returned, not as a ghost, but as someone who's learned to listen in the quiet. Thank you for waiting. Let's make sounds that echo beyond us. The words landed like rain on parched soil, quelling the frenzy that had army staking vigil outside HYBE, purple banners fluttering in the summer haze. Reunion came in fragments, not fanfares. First, a late-night ramen run with Namjoon, steam curling between them as they dissected the center's beta tracks. How a warped bass line could mimic the loop of anxious thoughts, then resolve into open chords. "You're turning scars into scales," Namjoon murmured. Chopsticks paused mid-air, his own post-service poetry stack spilling from a battered notebook. Yoongi shrugged, but the gesture carried weight, a nod to the letters they'd exchanged during enlistments. RM's dispatches from boot camp philosophy, Yoongi's from the welfare desk, sketches of melodies born in bureaucratic lulls. By February, the lab swelled, Jimin's falsetto threading through experimental loops, Taehyung's baritone grounding the chaos, Jungkook layering ad-libs with the precision of a sniper. Si-hyuk arrived with prototypes from his solo dance therapy sessions, movements calibrated for neurodiverse flows, while Seok-jin brought levity, testing vocal warm-ups that doubled as breathing exercises. Bang hovered at the edges, not as overseer, but conspirator, his once iron grip softened by the sight of them whole. The center's ripple widened, insidious and insistent. In March, a Yonsei symposium drew clinicians from Tokyo to Toronto, panels dissecting how Yoongi's soundscapes, pulses synced to heart rates, dissonances designed to build tolerance, outperformed standard protocols in engagement metrics. One presenter, a soft-spoken pediatrician with wire-rimmed glasses, credited a track from the workshop archive, Echoes Unbound, a collaboration where kids layered whispers over Yoongi's minimalist beat, transforming isolation into a polyphonic hum. It wasn't just data, it was testimony, a mother's video log, her son, once non-verbal in crowds, now humming choruses at family dinners. Hybe's corridors buzzed with emulation. New Gene sessions incorporating adaptive visuals, TXT exploring lyric therapy modules. Critics, those perennial thorns, pivoted from post-BTS irrelevance to reluctant praise, one NME dispatch calling it K-pop's quiet insurgency against its own excess. Yoongi read it in a cafe nook, sunlight slanting across the page, a faint smile cracking his perpetual half-scowl. Legacy, he'd mused to his reflection in the espresso's sheen, wasn't hoarded. It was hacked open, code shared for the collective debug. Yet the underbelly stirred, as it always did in the glow of progress. A leaked memo surfaced in April, Hybe's expansion blueprint, branding the center as a wellness IP, tie-ins with merch lines and VR experiences. Yoongi confronted Bang over scorched jjigae in a hole in the wall near the river, chopsticks clattering like punctuation. "This isn't a concept album, Hyung. It's not for sale." Bang's eyes, weary under fluorescent flicker, met his without flinching. "I know, but the world devours the pure unless you armor it." The tension coiled, a baseline unresolved, echoing Yoongi's own history. The 2018 burnout that birthed his hiatus, the shoulder tear forcing D-Day's raw urgency. They compromised, not surrender but strategy, a non-profit arm, royalties funneled back to grants, Yoongi's veto on any glossy pivot. It bound them closer, mentor and mentee forged in the fire of mutual concession. Bang seeing in Yoongi the unyielding spark he'd chased since that Daegu audition tape. By summer's cusp, the HYYH threads wove in earnest. The anniversary album, Eternal Bloom, dropped like a time capsule cracked open. Tracks revisiting I Need You's ache, but laced with the center's ethos. Bridges where fan-submitted stories, anonymized and voiced by the kids, interwove with their harmonies. Spring Day, Redux, featured a children's choir, their off-key purity a counterpoint to the adult's polished ache, evoking cherry blossoms in neural gardens. Stadiums sold out in hours, but the real pulse thrummed in pop-up listening lounges worldwide. Berlin basements with sensory pods, LA lofts hosting jam circles for autistic creators. Army, That vast neural net amplified it. Fundraisers netting millions, purple threads stitching global chapters into a tapestry of tangible aid. Yoongi watched from the wings during the soul opener. July heat pressing like an old wound, as a girl from the center took the stage for a verse, her voice a fragile flare against 50,000 lights. The roar wasn't adulation, it was affirmation, a collective exhale. In the quiet aftermath, as confetti settled like faded petals, Yoongi slipped away to the hand's edge, feet dangling over water that mirrored the city's ceaseless churn. The project, once a solitary seed in military monotony, had branched into something vaster, a reminder that disappearance was illusion, the self merely refracting through prisms of purpose. Bang joined him there at dawn, two silhouettes against the blush of first light, sharing a thermos of barley tea. No words at first, just the lap of waves underscoring unspoken vows. To the boys, to the music, to the margins they'd both clawed from. As the sun crested, gilding the skyline, Yoongi pulled a thumb drive from his pocket. Sketches for the next phase, a global satellite network of labs where sound met silence head-on. "It's not ending," he said, voice low as a verse drop. "It's just remixing." And in that remix, the light bent sharper, illuminating paths not yet mapped, where every echo found its home.